Thank you everyone for coming out. Really appreciate it. It's a big zechus to come to the shul, Chazaq, and Kol Yisrael Achim, and do a lot of work together. And it's really an honor to come together and have this year and have Rabbi Lazer Brody come out. He's coming in all the way from Israel, speaking, give us Chazaq in the month of Elul to get us, to help awaken us in this very special month and special time. We should get ready, prepare for Rosh Hashanah. So it's a really big honor. Thank you everyone for coming out, and really appreciate it. As you know, Chazaq does a lot of different events throughout the communities. This event specifically is dedicated Louis Nishmat, David ben Moshe Cohen, Yosef Levi ben Chemda, Amuna Rivka bat Binyamin, Yocheved Mina bat Avraham, Rachmin ben Habib. May their neshamas have an aliyah. Amen. And if you have someone you would like to dedicate a shir for, you can reach out to Chazaq events at chazaq.org. We do shirim throughout the year. And besides the shirim that everyone knows about, Chazaq is also known for their public school outreach. We have locations in over 50 different locations in public schools, doing everywhere from elementary school to high school, after school programs, and our very special public school to yeshiva program where we've helped transfer over 1,300 students from public school into yeshiva, and Amir Hashem will be many more. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for the night. The reason we're all here to get Chazaq from Rabbi Lazer Brody, who is a world-renowned speaker and author of many Sfarim, translator of Garden of Amona, and many, many more. It's a really honor to have Rabbi Lazer Brody join us tonight. Nathan.
Shem Hashem, with Hashem's loving grace. Can everyone hear in the back? It's okay? Okay. They say in the Midrash, Potchim b'shevach sanya. We open with praise of our host. Host is Chazaq. And I want to tell everyone it's a privilege to come and to work with Chazaq. I'm delighted and honored to work with Chazaq. The last time I was in New York, and this is unsolicited, Chazaq can't tell you that, I could tell you this objective. It's objective outside that loves to cooperate with Chazaq. I went to the office of Chazaq, spent the afternoon at Chazaq with the Rebbeim of Chazaq. Now what Meir said, 1,300 children moved from public school to Torah schools, to yeshivas, I think that's an understatement. I think it's higher. I think it's closer to 1,400. I went with Rabbi Ephraim, and I went with Rabbi Ephraim, who is in charge of the kiruv of the public school kids. It is like Ali Baba and the 40 thieves going through, getting one child over it, going for the parents, and sometimes it's a single parent or divorced parents. You have to convince the mother, then convince the father, go to here and go to there. And what they do for one child, to multiply this by, took the lower number, 1,300, I think it's 1,400 even higher. Multiply it, it's mind-boggling. And I asked them, I said, who's behind Chazaq? You got to have to do such kind of work, maybe Bill Gates or, no, they do not have fundraisers. They don't have anything. They do it all on their own. And it's my pleasure. I come when I come for Chazaq, just to give my donation and my help to Chazaq. And we don't take, no entrance fees here, no big any speaker fee, no travel fees. It's just that the honor to help Chazaq do what they do, to be machazek the people inside and to bring people from the outside. It is making a revolution to Yiddishkeit. Now, this is who the host is. I know they didn't ask for this. I know this is unsolicited. And ask Meir, they didn't know I was going to say this. But I just want to say this is an honor, a real honor to be here, because my whole mission in life is to bring neshamas close to Hashem, and they're doing it. Okay, so we're going to partner with anybody that's doing that. And with that said, let's try, B'ezrat Hashem, to bring ourselves closer to Hashem. And we have to understand one thing. People get Rosh Hashanah all wrong. Rosh Hashanah, the slichos for Ashkenazim, it starts at this coming Motzei Shabbat. The Sephardim are already deep in the slichot. And then we have another week and a half. It's less than 2 weeks to Rosh Hashanah. And what do? Well, some people, they cram. It's like the student that they've been playing all semester long, but now tomorrow's final exams, and they cram with the books, and they take, and back when I was in the university days, it was no dose, it was heavy coffee, and you drink it and stay up all night long, and you cram. And then what happens to what you cram for the exam, you forget the next day. It's the same thing that people do cram tshuva for Rosh Hashanah, and they do the cram tshuva for Rosh Hashanah, and the day after Rosh Hashanah, it's not there. The people in the Americans regularly, 1st of January, they make their New Year's resolutions. By the 15th of January, they're no longer there. And same thing with the Jews, they make our New Year resolutions, and how many people, do you remember what the resolution you made? The chizuk you took upon yourself last Rosh Hashanah? Don't remember it. Don't remember. The way to crown the king, and that's our subject tonight, crowning the king, is to crown ourselves as princes and princesses, that we are the sons and daughters of the king. Hashem Melech Malchei Amlochim is the King of Kings, and the Torah tells us, Bonim Atem L'Hashem Lokechem. You're all beloved sons and daughters of the king, which means don't sell yourselves short. People set the bar too low for their own aspirations, tell you are capable of doing 3 times much more than what you can in Ruchdias and in Gashmis. But people think in American society that their bodies, it's all a very Gashmis, a very material-oriented society, and Gashmis is limited, and they think that they're a body. For a person who thinks he or she is a body, that is not so encouraging. Now I can understand why there's so many tens of millions of Americans that are clinically depressed, because what means of a body? Every day, if a person is only a body, every day they wake up in the morning is a day closer to the funeral. Now what to look forward to? So wait a second. What's Hashem doing in this world? What's Hashem doing in the world? What are we, like a bucket? You ever take a bucket and put your hand in the bucket, make a big splash, big splash, big splash. Now take your hand out of the bucket and count on your stopwatch how long it takes for the water to come back to normal. 22 seconds. Just wait a second. It's as if did nothing. May come to the world. That's what we do. We come to the world, we make a big splash for 80, 90, 100, 120 years, then leave, and then the bucket, everything goes down. Can't be that. Can't be that. Because Hashem doesn't do something that is so inconsequential. Hashem has a tachlis, a purpose for everything he does. Everything he does is a specific purpose. And Hashem does everything for a purpose. Hashem doesn't do anything by happenstance. Everything is directed, divine sechel, divine direction. That's really encouraging. You know what that means? When Hashem does everything for direction and everything is with a purpose, and a person thinks, oh, what am I? I'm President of the United States. I'm head of a company. I'm a Rosh Hashiva. I'm just a regular... No, there's no such thing as just a regular Jew. You're son or daughter of the king. And it means, you know what it means that you're in the world? It means that the world cannot exist without you. But people don't realize it. I'm going to tell you a little story about Rosh Hashanah and tell you about the worth of person, what it means to Rosh Hashanah. And what it means, Rosh Hashanah, what we want to do is we want to have tshuva with a smile on our face. You know what we have to do tshuva for? Not tshuva for any sins you did or anything. Tshuva that you treated yourself like a 21st century simple person and not like a prince or princess, like a daughter of a king. This is what we have to do tshuva for. We have to remember it, because to be a daughter or son of a king, now we come to Rosh Hashanah. What's Rosh Hashanah about? Rosh Hashanah is not about tshuva. Rosh Hashanah it's too late to do tshuva on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah things are getting signed and sealed and delivered. Now is the time to do tshuva. Elul, that's why we're talking about this now. Rosh Hashanah is the coronation of the king. I don't know if you saw in America. America is different from Great Britain. Great Britain in England, they're very tradition-oriented. And this past year, the Queen of England died. They have a new king, her son, King George. And the whole week long I was in Chicago, and a guy in Chicago with a company came to my shiur, and he told me that on the day that the Queen of England died, his secretary, she was a girl that learned at University of Illinois, and afterwards she was a girl from London, and she stayed in Chicago to work, and she became the secretary of his company, and he had to give her a day off, because when the Queen of England died, she just cried and cried and cried, and she said she couldn't come into work. She was so emotionally upset, because they're so connected to their tradition. They're so connected to their tradition. And so this is, The British are connected to the tradition, to their king or their queen, that's flesh and blood, that's here today, gone tomorrow. What about us? We've got the King of Kings. And Rosh Hashanah is not about Shuvah, it's about crowning the king. If you ever come to Uman on Rosh Hashanah, and at the end, right after Nishmas, you get before Yishtabach, we say Hamelech, and we say Hamelech, and everybody have thousands of people applauding. What are they applauding? This is the coronation of the king. We crown the king. Now let me tell you something about the king. Okay, if Hashem is a king, people think that Hashem is far away, far removed. Hashem is our Father, Avinu Malkeinu. Hashem is the King. Now, what credit is it for the king if the subjects in his kingdom are poor, are sick, they don't have any money, they don't have good soulmates, they don't have good children, they don't have children at all, they're down and outers, sleep in a park bench? That's no credit for a king. The covet of a king is that he's got rich, good-looking, healthy subjects, and they all have good income, and they all have good health, and they're all brilliant. They have wonderful children and wonderful. This is what a king. Hashem wants everything for us, and Hashem wants to give us everything. But we don't realize that he's the king. The sons and daughters, the king. And it's like the story of the king's minister. He's taking a walk in the park, and he sees this shovel, happy. Maybe he didn't shower for 2 weeks, and he's got this oily, matted down hair, and he's sleeping on the park bench, and he takes a look at him, he looks familiar. Takes another look at him, looks familiar. A third look at him, that's the king's son. That's the king's son. He's out in the park, sleeping on the park bench. So what do you do sleeping on the park bench? Why don't you go? You know your father's the king. You can ask him for anything you want. He says, I don't have time. You see, you can ask Hashem for whatever you want. Hashem, I'm your daughter. Hashem, I'm your son. Which means if you're the king, then I'm a prince. Hashem, help me be successful. Help me be successful in my Torah. Help me see myself in business. If I'm a businessman, Hashem, help me be an upright businessman according to Shulchan Aruch. Hashem, send me a good shidduch. I'm the king's daughter. The king doesn't marry off his daughter to the guy that milks the cows out in the cow shed. No, you bring a prince, brings another prince. Okay, so you can ask Hashem for whatever you want, whenever you want. But to ask Hashem for whatever you want, whenever you want, you have to believe in the king. You can't crown the king if you don't believe in him. What does it mean to believe in Hashem? It means to have our own personal relationship. If we look in the dictionary, you say emunah. What's emunah mean? Say faith. Oh, faith. Okay, so what do you do with that? Take that to the grocery store and buy something? No. Emunah is our own personal relationship with Hashem. And means you don't need to go through anybody. You could talk to Hashem whenever you want, 24/7, whenever you want to, and ask for whatever you want. And you could go. People think that they're very simple and they can't. And they'll tell you a little story for Rosh Hashanah. The king was taking a walk. He went to take a walk, so he took off his royal clothes, and he went out in the garden. He was wearing his casual clothes. He wasn't wearing the clothes that he wears on the throne. And he was the king was conversing with Hashem, and his mind just wandered and wandered and wandered. And he wandered off the palace grounds, and he wandered off into the woods. And before you know, he was deep into the woods. And he was deep into the woods, and looks around. The sun is setting very fast. It's about to go down. And the king, he doesn't know where he is. He can't find his way out of the woods. So now it's pitch black, and he hears the owls and the coyotes and these scary sounds, and all of a sudden the king feels this hand grab him on the back, like that, grab him on the back. What is it? Turns around, there are these robbers, a group of robbers, and they say, you're coming with us. He said, what? No, I'm the king. And they start laughing at him. Yeah, tell us another story. Yeah, the king. So you're king, I'm King Arthur, and this one's is King Tut. Okay, you're the king. So they grab him, they put him in a cave, and they say they're going to take a ransom for him, and they're going to kill him. They threaten him with all these things. Well, they tie him up, and they go to sleep. And this one young robber, he knows, he once saw the king. He once saw the king. So he goes very carefully, quietly, tiptoes to where they're holding the king in this cave. And he whispers to the king, he says, Your Majesty, I know who you are. Very quiet. I'm going to get you out of here. I'm going to take you back to the palace. So the youngest member of this group of robbers, he unties the king, and he takes the king back to the palace. Take the king back to the palace, and the king says, this young robber, he says, well, what are you going to do now? He says, if they find out that you let me go, they're going to kill you. He says, you can't do that. No, why don't you stay here in the palace? He says, Your Majesty, how can I stay here in the palace? Here, I was an orphan, and I grew up in the woods, and I joined these robbers. I didn't have a mother, I didn't have a father, I didn't have anything to eat. They gave me something to eat. I joined this band of robbers, not because I want to be like that, but I was an orphan in the woods. He says, you're not going to be an orphan in the woods. The king saw in this young man that this young man had good character. He saw that this young man was bright. He says, you're not going to be a robber out in the woods anymore. I'm taking the palace. So the king cleans him up and puts new clothes on him, clothes of a prince, and brings him tutors. But this young man, he said one thing, he had a feeling. He took off his old clothes. He said, Your Majesty, I want to keep my old clothes, just can I put them up in the attic or somewhere? Okay, I want to throw them out. Don't throw my clothes out. So they put them in a little bag or box. They put it up in the attic in someplace in the palace. And this young man was tutors, and within a year, he outlearns all his tutors. He knows more than the math tutor. He knows more than the composition tutor. He knows more than the history tutor and political science tutor. And this young man is brilliant, and he's honest, and he loves the king like a father. Well, pretty soon, he goes up and up and up. The king appoints him the minister, and this young man is more talented than the finance minister. He's smarter than the foreign secretary, all the ministers. He outsmarts all the ministers. But all the ministers are very jealous. Here's this young man, and he's smarter than they are, and they're all behind the king's back, sponging off the king's treasures, and he treats the king like his father. It's like the king's adopted son. And so what they did, they made a plot, and they said a blood libel about him. They made up a story that he wants to overthrow the king, and they bring all this fake evidence, and they make a court case, and they bring it to the court, and they accuse him. The court has to come to a court case. Well, the king, he's the Supreme Court. He's the final judgment. But the king can't interfere in the judicial process. So the judicial process, the court says that this dumps it. They bring the king all this proof and this whole big dossier that this young lad that came up was a robber in the woods, and the king adopted him as son. And now he's the adopted prince and a minister. That he's unloyal to the king, and they show him this, he did that, all types of false allegations. And it goes to one court, and they said he's guilty. It goes to the second court, there's a death penalty. Now, before the death penalty is implemented, it has to go to the king. The king has to sign a death penalty, and if the king doesn't have to sign death penalty, that's the law in the kingdom. Can't happen. So it goes to the king, and he looks at the king, and the king looks at him. And he says, Your Majesty, do you believe what's in all that? The king says, it's got all this, all these lawyers and all these ministers and all this proof. So the king says, apparently, you're guilty. And the king had his doubts about it. He wasn't 100% sure. But before they put someone to death, he gets one last wish. And before they put this young man to death, the king says, what's your last wish? He says, Your Majesty, send the servants up to the attic where that bag of my old clothes is. I want to wear my own clothes, and I'm going to appear before you in my old clothes. Understand what he's talking about. Somebody asks a wish, they want some crazy thing, when a great meal or something. When Saddam Hussein, when he died, he asked for his last wish before they killed him. He asked for a cheeseburger and a Coke. That's Saddam Hussein. Okay, but this young boy, he wants to put on his old clothes. So they bring him his old clothes, and he goes to a side room, changes, and comes back in, and he's wearing clothes that he was when he was a young robber, and he liberated the king. And the king looks at him. He says, Yes, Your Majesty, look at me. Look at me. See, the boy in these clothes risked his life to get you out of there and bring you to freedom. Just imagine they would do something to overthrow you. And the king threw it out. They ended up executing the ministers that made the false allegations. They got him off. Do you know who that prince is? That prince is every one of us, the king's kids. We come to Rosh Hashanah, and the accusing angels, they make all these accusations. And these accusations, they sound like they're real, but they're not real. They don't look at the mitigating circumstances that maybe somebody, oh, this person did do this, the person maybe is under duress or has a difficult test. They don't look at all the, they don't look, the king is merciful. But then we remind the king who we are, and we blow the shofar. You know what the shofar comes from? The shofar comes from Al Yitzchak. The shofar comes from the ram, Yitzchak's ram. That Yitzchak reminds the king, Your Majesty, I was willing to be slaughtered to show my loyalty to you. These are my granddaughters, these are my grandsons. That's it, when it comes right down. And we see when it comes, brass tacks, a Jew will always show his absolute loyalty to Hashem, Mi K'amcha Yisrael. There's a story from the Holocaust. There's a man in Poland. It was a town, I think it was in Lodz. No, not Krakow, in Lodz. Man in Lodz. Lodz was a town that had one side of it was yeshivas, and one side of it they became not religious. There was this one guy, a barber in Lodz, and he kept his barber shop, a Jewish barber, kept it open on Shabbat. And everybody said, well, close that down. Close that down. It's not that Jews shouldn't be open on Shabbat. Okay, so you don't keep Shabbat, but at least don't keep your business open. No, I'm going to keep my business open. And they would give haircuts to the Gentiles. Well, the Nazis came in to Lodz. Lodz was one of the first places the Nazis came in and told the Jews sit in their homes before they killed them, before they sent them to concentration camps and the ghetto. And it was Saturday, Shabbat, when the Nazis came in. And this guy's store was open. His barbershop was open. So Nazis went in, and some snitch that told them that this guy's a Jew, and they took him out in the middle of the street. And they took from the local synagogue a Sefer Torah. And they opened the Sefer Torah, and they spread the Sefer Torah on the sidewalk. And they took this barber, and they told him to desecrate the Sefer Torah. I'm not going to say what they told him to do, but they told him to do something very nasty to Sefer Torah. I said, I can't do that. I said, what do you mean you can't do that, the Nazi says? You're open on Shabbat. What do you care about that Sefer Torah? You don't do what's written in there. He says, no, I can't do what you're asking me to do. To soil the Sefer Torah. He said, you can't do it. Now, if you don't do it, you're going to die right in front of the people. He didn't care. He says, you're going to have to kill me. So they killed him. He died on Kiddush Hashem. Here we see this young man, when it came, it was a Machalel Shabbat. He did everything wrong. But when it came down to think, who are you? He's the son of a king. He's willing to die for his father. It's just like Yitzchak Avinu. Mi K'amcha Yisrael. Mi K'amcha Yisrael. And this is the thing we remind Hashem Yitbarach. We remind Hashem who we are on Rosh Hashanah. We hear the shofar. We are the son and daughter of a king. Your Majesty, Hashem Yitbarach. We are here to crown you as king. You know we're not perfect. You know we're not perfect because we're not malachim. An angel doesn't have a Yetzer Hara. Every one of us has a Yetzer Hara. Every one of us has an evil inclination we're fighting against. And we don't always win. Yaakov Avinu had to fight the Yetzer Hara all night long, pitched battle. There's no match in world wrestling that could match that match. That was the match of all matches. Yaakov Avinu fought Esav's angel. And in the end, he didn't come out clean. He got Esav's angel did a dirty move on him, and he came home limping. And that's why we don't eat Gida Nashe. We don't eat the tendon from the thigh. The referee would have called him. That was below the belt. He hit Yaakov Avinu below the belt. Okay. But Yetzer Hara doesn't play by the rules. Yetzer Hara does whatever he does, and he does sometimes. He fights us dirty. We hold on. What angel fights the Yetzer Hara? Do you know that we're higher than the angels? And I'll prove it to you. We're much higher than the angels. The angels came down here. They came to Avram Avinu. They ate milk and meat. They messed up. The angels, there were two angels that fell out of Shemayim at the time, way the time of Noah. that before the time of Noah, they saw these beautiful women. They saw these beautiful women. They were attracted by women. Angel attracted by women. And here you see guys, it says in our Torah, lo tinaf, commit adultery and loyal to our wives. It said, but higher than the angels. Am Yisrael, higher than the angels. So who could say a word against Am Yisrael? I'll tell you something, when we know that we're sons and daughters of the king, it's not enough that we know that we are sons and daughters of the king. We have to know that our brother and our sister is also a son of a king and a daughter of a king, which means that we can't say a word about any other Jew. Not a detrimental word, anything a complimentary word. Because there's two things, and this is what we need to do tshuva for. There are two things that cause a person trouble in Shemayim. What does Hashem do? Hashem is a loving father. Hashem doesn't judge anybody. We all have a dossier in Shemayim, and the dossier is closed. Nobody can see it. Nobody opens it. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah, and like the first mission in Tractate Rosh Hashanah says, Kitzon Gemrei Malom, that we all go like a flock of sheep in front of Hashem, and Hashem opens up all our dossiers, and we're judged together, and together as Klal Yisrael, we're judged for a good year. But what happens in the middle of a year if somebody says, oh, this one is like that, and this one is like that? They can understand why the Chafetz Chaim spent his whole life teaching Lashon Hara, and he wrote that book, this most famous book, well, Mishnah Berurah, but the Hilchot Lashon Hara, Chafetz Chaim. So we shouldn't speak Lashon Hara. Now, a person forces the heavenly court to open their file. Who is he or she to say Lashon Hara about somebody else? And they see what the Torah says, he who is free of sin should cast the first stone. Let's see what they do. Oh, now when they open a person's file and they say, uh-oh, he did this, and she did that, and he did this, and she did that. Hashem, says the heavenly angel, the lawyer up there, the accusing lawyer, Hashem, look what's in their file. Hashem, how come you didn't punish them for that? Hashem is patient, Father. Hashem's waiting for them to tshuva, and Hashem loves us so much. Hashem is waiting for everybody to come to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah, pass them all together, judge them all together. Yom Kippur, everybody's forgiven. That's it, forgiven. But that's if we keep our mouths closed, we don't talk bad against something else. There's something else that causes a person's file. Excuse me. Something else that causes a person's file to be open. Complaining. When a person complains against Hashem, Hashem says, you think they have it hard, complaining? Let's see if they deserve what they have. So again, they open up the file, and they see what that person has more than what they deserve. So once again, they get punished. Now there's a problem. Thank you so much. I'll make a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvoi. Shkoyach. When a person complains, it's not good. And Hashem says, I don't want to be a person to be a liar. So I have to give him reasons to complain, so he's telling the truth. So Hashem gives reasons to complain. And they see that we bring our own troubles upon ourselves. Because Hashem is the king, and we're his children. He wants us to have everything good. But we wouldn't. This is what King Solomon says. King Solomon says, Ivelet Adam Yisalef Dalko, Val Hashem Yizaf Libo. That a fool's folly makes him walk a crooked path, and then he blames Hashem. Fool's folly. If we just know that we're sons and daughters of the king, and our brothers and sisters say that they're sons and daughters of the king, and we can't judge another person. Because when we judge another person, we get judged. That's the judgment trap. During Elul, they bring all types of examples, they ask you, it's a judgment trap, to extend your opinion about something. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? The opinion, be very careful, because it's a trick. We're actually judging ourselves. You know who did this trick? It's in the Torah, it's in Navi. Natan Navi, he came to King David, and he said, Your Majesty, I've got a really difficult problem. And the king of Israel. He's the Supreme Court. There's a Supreme Court. He made the final decision. So you imagine, what's the problem? And Natan Navi, Nathan the prophet, he said, there's this rich man that's got 5,000 sheep. And this poor man that has one little sheep, always got one little sheep. Well, the rich man wanted to have lamb chops. He didn't slaughter one of his own sheep. He went and he took the poor man's sheep and he slaughtered the poor man's sheep so he could eat lamb chops. You imagine, what do I do with this guy? King David says, what? He did that? Death penalty. Nathan the prophet says, Your Majesty, that's you. You've got all these wives and you've got all that money. And Uriah the Hittite, he had this one wife and you took her? You had everything? Okay, don't get it wrong. The Gemara says that King David didn't sin as far as Bathsheba goes. But this is an example that to tell the whole story of that would take another whole hour together. Maybe next time we're in Great Neck. Bezat Hashem. Okay, it's a lot. Torah is a lot of action. I don't know why people look at Netflix. There's so much action in Torah. Okay. Has to say. As King David understood, oh wow, that Hashem turned it. This is what they do. They tell us to judge a situation as if it's another person. We say, oh, that other person, he's really stingy. Or that other person, they don't treat their children well. That other person doesn't treat their husband or their wife well. That other person, nah, they don't care. They don't have Yirat Shamayim. That other person this, that other person that. It's all showing us. We are judging ourselves. So what happens on Judgment Day? We get all these severe judgments. Heaven forbid, heaven forbid. We say, Shem, I didn't do that. Oh, yes, you did. And it's even worse. In the Gesher HaChaim, Rabbi Michal Tolachitsky wrote a 3-volume book. People say, we don't know what happens when the neshama leaves. Yes, we sure do. We know exactly. The Zohar tells us, the Arizal tells us, we know exactly what happens when the neshama leaves the body. Okay, so the neshama goes to the heavenly court, and the heavenly court says all these accusations, and says, Neshama says, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. What are all these stories? I didn't do that. This is the court of truth. This is Olam Ha'emet, this court of truth. You did. Look, there's your signatures right there. They said, what do you mean? And they show him a story, like the story with Natan Navi and King David. They showed us situations where we judged other people, and the way we judge other people, that it becomes halacha for us. Because we get judged. The Gemara in Yoma says, B'derech sh'adam olech molichim oto, B'derech sh'adam shofet shoftim oto. That the way a person wants to go, that's the way they take him. And the way a person judges, that's the way he judges him. If we judge every person fairly, like the Torah commands us to do, but tzedek tishpot amitecha, we give everybody the benefit of the doubt, we give everybody else the benefit of the doubt. And there's something even greater. If we forgive everyone that ever did us harm, you know what happens? There's a law. We must be forgiven. The person that did you the biggest insulting thing, the person that took away, don't be jealous. Okay, a guy ripped you off of $1,000 in business. Don't be jealous of that guy. Because he took $1,000 from you in business and ripped you off in business. He gets all the trouble that will be attached to $1,000. That $1,000, you'd have used it for dental bills, you'd use it for medical bills. So what Hashem does, Hashem attaches $1,000 worth of your trouble, but it's even more, several times. And the person who unfairly or dishonestly took money from you, he gets that. Really, the Chofetz Chaim says for someone that takes something like that from us, we should send them flowers. Because you get someone says Lashon Hara about us, we get their mitzvahs, they get our averos. It's like Yom Kippur. So somebody says, oh, so we spoke Lashon Hara. Okay, somebody Lashon Hara, good. What's his address? Go to a flower shop, send him flowers. Thank you for all your mitzvahs, and thank you for cleaning me up. I didn't know how to do tshuva for all my averos, and I said automatically, good. So you say I'm an nincompoop, I'm going to say amen. You know, if you told 50 people in Shul that Lazer Brody's an nincompoop, amen. All right on, brother. Good. Thank you. Kapah. I'm going to go and then have another healthy, happy new year. Come out clean. Baruch Hashem. So it's nothing to be angry about. Just to remember that we are the sons and daughters of kings. Hashem wants everything good for us. Hashem wants us to have every single blessing. Hashem wants us to have everything wonderful. And people forget that. People forget that. They think that Hashem is so. I don't know. It's a non-Jewish concept, not a Jewish concept. Hashem is a loving God. So if people argue with me, oh, the Torah says, kill Kana, that Hashem is a vengeant God. What's Hashem vengeant God? Oh, you're sure? If Hashem wants to see Hashem's vengeance, then someone should do Avodah Zarah. Okay, if someone goes and builds a golden calf in the middle of 5 towns, in the middle of the square in 5 towns. I don't know anybody that builds golden calves in 5 towns. I never knew a Jew that did idolatry. Okay, and even I knew a couple of guys after the army and the IDF, and they went over to Tibet to some monastery, and in Israel they would have stayed. They were from non-religious kibbutz. After they went to Tibet, and they finally made it to this monk, and the monk says, "Where are you from?" They were from Israel. You're Jewish? I'm Jewish. Monk says, go back and discover yourself. He says, what you can learn from me is way below what you can learn from your own Torah. So they went to this monk to do Avodah Zarah, and Hashem turned it around that they should do tshuva. The Jews don't do Avodah Zarah. We're loyal to our Father. When it comes right down to the wire, everybody, we are all beloved sons and daughters of Hashem. This is something we remember on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a time for joy. Rosh Hashanah is a time for tshuva. Rosh Hashanah, lech tochal b'simcha lachmecha. If we're not life and death sentence, we don't eat apple and honey. We know that Hashem is going to sign and seal us for a good year. But we have to remember one thing. We crown Hashem. We coronate Hashem. That means we go to Shulam Rosh Hashanah and act like sons of kings, act like daughters of king. Yehei Shmei Rabba. They say Yehei Shmei Rabba. Yehei Shmei Rabba. You know what that means in Aramaic? Yehei Shmei Rabba. May His great and exalted name, Mevorach, may it be blessed. Le'olam la'ol me'olmaya, forever and forever, forever. The Gemara tells us, now listen to this, it's so easy to do tshuva and have a smile on your face. There'll be people doing all this, what are they going to do? And hit my stomach, hit my chest, and people come and they have bruises on their chest. No, that's not tshuva. That's not tshuva. That's a self-flagellation. You don't whip yourself. You say Yehei Shmei Rabba, and you stop and think about who am I saying? Yehei Shmei Rabba, it's the name of the king. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach. You know what the Gemara says? Somebody says, one Yehei Shmei Rabba, with all his might, if he's got a rap, what do they say? What do they call it in the criminal world? A sheet. Rap sheet. Huh? Rap sheet. A rap sheet, thank you. He's got a rap sheet for 70 years. 70 years of crimes. One Yehei Shmei Rabba, he gets his rap sheet ripped up. It's a Gemara. It's the words of Gemara, not mine. It said the person has Shivim Shana Gzerot Kashot, this word of Gemara, 70 years of bad gazelas, and one Yehei Shmei Rabba. That's it. That's crowning the king, Yehei Shmei Rabba. We say Amelech, we think Amelech. We say Avinu Malkeinu, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Avinu Malkeinu. Do you know the story of Avinu Malkeinu? Where Avinu Malkeinu comes from? There was the great Tana, the time of the Tanoim, Rabbi Lazer ben Horkanes. He was the great of his generation. And his Talmud, his student, was Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was a poor laborer. You know, the story from the Gemara Ksubas, they tell the girls in Beis Yaakov about Rachel, how she took Rabbi Akiva, she saw his good midas, and she married Rabbi Akiva, and he was a poor farmer. And Rabbi Akiva learned to read when he was 40. Until 40, he was illiterate. And he learned Torah from 40 till 80, and then he taught for 80 till, for the next 80 to 40, he amassed 100. He took 24,000 students, and they all died. That's why we have problem no more. But they all died because they didn't properly respect one another. You say, what? That's the reason to die? No, Hashem knew that Torah would come down from Rabbi Akiva. So it couldn't go through these students that properly respected one another. Rabbi Akiva, he knew he was the son of Hashem. He uplifted himself so much. He was the son of Hashem. He started all over. Can you imagine if your life worked? You build a big business. You build a big $1 million business, and you work, and you're 101 years old, and heaven forbid, your business burns to the ground. Who would have the power to start all over from nothing? Rabbi Akiva did. He had 24,000 students. They all died in a plague. And he started all over. And you know the power starting all over? You know where his students were afterward? Wow. He had 5 students. Rabbi Meir Balanes, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, Rabbi Yossi ben Chalfata, and Rabbi Lazer ben Arak. They're 5 grades. So one greater than the other. You start all over. And this was his. So Rabbi Akiva, he was still a young Baal Tshuva, a young Torah scholar, and he was learning with his great Rebbe. And the Gemara in Tractate Tani tells us that there was a famine in Eretz Yisrael. There was 3 years that there was no rain. So everybody went to Rabbi Lazer, and he said, Rabbeinu, pray to Hashem, Rabbeinu, pray to Hashem, that there should be rain. And he prayed, not a cloud in the sky. So Rabbi Akiva, he wasn't Rabbi Akiva then, he was Akiva. Okay, very simple. The godel of the door, the grade of the door. Imagine Reb Chaim Kanevsky, Reb Avad Yosef, they're praying and their prayer isn't answered. And then comes along a little Baal Tshuva from Or Sameach or Rabel Baz's Yeshiva or Chaim, and they go and they pray and boom. This is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva came out and the Gemara tells us he looked up in the sky and he had tears in his eyes. And he said, Avinu Malkeinu. Malkeinu is our king. Avinu, our father. Avinu Malkeinu. He said, Avinu Malkeinu. Shlach afu Shleim, Avinu Malkeinu. Shlach Geshem, Avinu Malkeinu. We asked everything what he wanted, Avinu Malkeinu. The clouds just gathered. It was a thunderstorm. Massive. This is the first one in history to ever say Avinu Malkeinu was Rabbi Akiva. Let's go to find the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva teaches us a secret. We come to Rosh Hashanah, and who are we praying to? Yes, Melech Malchei Amlachim. But he's not only King of Kings, he's Malkeinu. He's our King. And who is that, my King? That's my Father. What do you mean it's your Father? The Gemara tells me, Banim atem Hashem Elokecha. Your sons and daughters of Hashem. The Torah tells me, the Torah gives me a signed check worth $10 zillion that I'm a son of Hashem. And we're sort of, go prove to your son Hashem. Very, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, what do they have in America? A DNA package? They check your DNA? All right, I'll do spiritual DNA. Okay, if they do my physical DNA, they're going to find 50% my mama's DNA and 50% my Abba's DNA. And what about the spiritual DNA? How do you get the spiritual DNA? Let's open up the Zohar, and the Zohar to Parshas Bereishis, and our spiritual DNA is our neshama. Because what's the difference between a live body and a not live body? Isn't there a body that's not alive? It's got 10 fingers and 10 toes, and it's got 2 eyes, they're closed. It's got a head, it's got all the parts, but it doesn't have a life source. What is that life source in us? That life source in us is our neshama. And that life source comes from our neshama, and the moment the neshama leaves a person, that's it, finished in this world. So the body goes back to where it goes, and the neshama goes where it goes. Because the neshama, but here's the great news. The neshama tells us, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he says, Chelek elok mima'al. It's a tiny spark of Hashem. Wow. You know what that means? This is why we got to love each other. Because you've got a tiny spark of Hashem, you've got a tiny spark of Hashem, you've got a tiny spark of Hashem, I got a tiny spark of Hashem, you're the daughter of Hashem, you're the son of Hashem, I'm a son of Hashem, we're all brothers and sisters. And that's why Hashem has such joy when we're together, and when we're not together, we're separated. That's why that's why we're still in Golus. Because you lost the second temple, because of sin of China. So we go on Rosh Hashanah, we know we're all the children of Hashem, and Hashem is our king, and we put the crown on a king's head. And a king has no greater satisfaction when his own children crown him. And that's why everything that we do to crown them, there's no such thing. You ever see if a flesh and blood coronation, somebody goes to the coronation of the king, they came home in Britain, the king, everybody went home and they got some special present, some special medal, a commemorative medal, and worth so much money. And you go to a flesh and blood coronation of king, come home with presents. You know what presents you come home with the king's coronation? How about a signature for a ksivach simatoiva, signature Mazal for a wonderful New Year and a great parnasah, and a smile on your face all year long, and shalom bayit, and wonderful kids, and great shidduchim. Wow, great shidduchim. Because the king wants to marry off his sons and daughters. He wants to dance at their weddings. Well, Hashem, this is what happens when we crown the king. We crown the king, we have everything good in life. And we have simcha and our neshama. There's so many millions of people in Western society that are walking around clinically depressed. And why are they clinically depressed? Because they think they're bodies. And the body tells you you're not good enough. The body tells you you're not good enough. The body tells you this. You got to be like this. You got to wear this makeup and drive this kind of car. And if you don't have a Mercedes 400 DL, that you're nothing. And if you don't wear this type of makeup, or you don't wear this Gucci thing, you don't have a Breitling watch. Well, the psycho's not good. No, you got to have a Breitling watch. You can't go to a business meeting without your Breitling watch on. What's wrong with that psycho? What's wrong with that Biden's even a size citizen? Okay. Oh, my Casio. Oh. But we're not bodies. We're neshamot. That's what sets us apart. That Am Yisrael. This is all Goyim. We're not all Goyim because of our bodies. We can't. How many Jews are there in the NBA? Okay, they play basketball better than we do. How many Jews in the NFL? If we're out to be the football champs, this is our greatness? No. Our greatness is Am Sefer. That we bring the light of Emunah to the world. We bring the light. Now, Emunah, it's the first mitzvah of the Torah, and it's a mitzvah for not only Jews, mitzvah for non-Jews, to believe in Hashem. And if everyone believed in Hashem, we'd have peace in the world. But back to, what does Emunah mean? What does Emunah mean? What's your relationship with the king? Lubavitcher Rebbe used to say that during Elul, the king is in the field. It's easy to talk to the king. The king goes and he smiles at you. In Tishrei, the king is on the throne. And to go and see the king in the throne, you have to go in the palace, and you have to go through this guard, and go through this guard, and go through this one, go through that one. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. So now is really the time. We have a week and a half to be happy, to do tshuva. You know what the tshuva we have to do? Emunah, like it's in the dictionary, it says faith. If you ask my definition, Emunah is your own personal relationship with Hashem. How do you apply your own personal relationship with Hashem? If you go to a relationship therapist and there's a difficulty, whether it's between an employee or an employer, like an industrial sociologist, a therapist, or a marital therapist between a husband and wife, or a child psychologist between a parent and a child, or between siblings, the first thing the therapist asks for, how's communication? That's the first thing he wants, how's communication? And the therapist will ask the husband and wife, hey guys, do you have a cup of coffee together? Do you eat dinner together? How much time do you spend together? They say, no, spend time. The husband's got kyphosis because he walks around looking at his cell phone, and the wife's got kyphosis because she walks around looking at her cell phone. They don't look at each other. And now the generation, they don't know how to smile. Smile is it's a colon, half parentheses, all these emojis. Okay, not emojis, you smile with your face. Smile with your face, and the cell phone, put it in your pocket. And listen to me, you take at least a minimum half hour where you shut off your cell phones and you sit husband and wife together and say, hello, you remember me? I stood under the chuppah with you. Most people, they don't remember each other. If people, they marry off their kids and they don't know who they are. They haven't spent time together. The husband's off on his thing, the wife's off the thing, no communication. So no communication can't be shown by. And how many parents, they buy their kids Game Boys and Super Boys and all kinds of silly boys, and just not to spend time. What, your kids aren't worth to spend time? And they complain about their child education. You know, nothing is more important to a child to have an intimate relationship with mom and dad. And the child comes home and the child wants to tell you what's on his heart. Nobody else gets, no replacement for mom and dad, listening ear. And we're Hashem's children. If you have a problem, try it. You have a problem, you don't know what the solution is. Hashem knows the solution. We don't have a solution. Talk to Hashem in your own words every day. Now, I'll give you a challenge. Doesn't matter whether you're a businessman, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a student, whatever you're doing. before you do, take 5 minutes and ask Hashem, Hashem, help me. Before you go into business meeting, Hashem, help me make this sale. Hashem, give me the right words to say. Before you teach a class, Hashem, help me get to the heart of my students. Before you bake a challah, Hashem, help the challahs come out right. And guess what? Hashem's going to help. And if you ask Hashem for help, if you put in salt instead of sugar, the cake's going to come out tasting great. Because Hashem could do everything and turn everything and everything. So that's the great thing to be a son and daughter of a king. So remember, you're not a simple person. Don't sell yourself short. Pick up the bar higher. Remember that you're sons and daughters of a king. And Hashem should bless you and sign you and seal you for the very best year of your life, 5784. Amen. If anyone wants to say hello, wants a bracha, I apologize. People asked, did you bring your books? I came after, excuse me, I've been on the road for 2 weeks. And I came from California and all over California and Chicago and New Jersey to here. And by March, we had cleaned out of books. So if you want to find our books, you can find on lazerbeams.com, LAZERBEAMS.com. And there's books by Lazer Brody. You can see Bo Hashem, they enrich your life. And just stay in contact with us. And see we have free, everything we do, all our lessons, no charge, everything. You can see the lessons on MP3. If you want to download, anything you want to download, no charge, MP3, Bo Hashem. And we look forward to staying in contact. And I'll be sitting here. Anybody wants to come and ask for a bracha. We're going to have a Ma'ariv now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So we're daven Ma'ariv, and if daven Ma'ariv right now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So right after Ma'ariv, take 12 minutes to daven Ma'ariv, and right after Aravit, we'll be happy to give on a blessing. Hashem should bless the Kehillah and Great Neck, every one of you. It's a whole Kehillah and every one of you individually. Amen.